Hi, David here, and welcome back to the channel, where we're looking at life in spirit through the automatic writings of early 20th century medium James Padgett. In this video, we're going to look at three messages from friends of James, all written through him on July 22, 1915. Two of them are very short, but each of them gives glimpses into what life in spirit is like for these different friends and acquaintances of James, and what they have learned so far, or not learned. The first message is from a friend called Hugh Taggart, and as we'll see, this is not the first time Hugh has contacted James since passing to spirit. The message begins, "I am here, Hugh Taggart. I am grateful for what you have done for me, and the great light that has come to me by reason of your advice, and the teachings and help of your band, and especially the deep sympathy and sisterly love of that beautiful wife of yours." Hugh Taggart is referring here to the band of spirit helpers who have formed around James, and to James's wife, Helen. He continues, "Why, Padgett, I want to tell you that the most fortunate things of my whole existence were my acquaintance with you and the wonderful results that flowed from it. I sometimes wonder how all of this could have come about. When on earth, while I knew that you believed in spiritualism, yet I never realized what your belief and experience meant to you, and what a great help it would be to me when the time came for me to become a spirit. As a working medium, I soon learned that most of the people you speak to might be interested in what you have to say about life in spirit, but will not necessarily believe it. That might seem frustrating, but then I remember how long it took me to get my head around even the basics. And you accept that the knowledge you share might not seem useful to someone until they pass to spirit themselves. That is still worthwhile. Hugh says to James, "I will never forget our first argument after I became a spirit on this great question of how I might be rescued from my awful condition of suffering and darkness, and with what earnestness you maintained the position that you took, and tried to show me that there was a way by which I could get light and happiness and relief from my torments. Mackey and I often talk about it, and we wonder how you could have such knowledge of these spiritual matters and such faith to maintain the truth of their existence. However, you were right, and your faith was not misplaced." So the argument that Hugh refers to is one that took place after he had died and was his first opportunity to contact James. Often when James was doing automatic writing, he would pause to look over what had been written and then respond to it verbally, knowing that the person who is with him will hear. The slightly annoying thing, of course, is that the writings that James left behind only show what the person in spirit has said, because James didn't bother writing down his questions or responses. But in the moment, of course, there is, in fact, a normal conversation taking place between James and his spirit communicator. Hugh Taggart refers here to him and James having had an argument, and you can see how that might have happened. It must be puzzling for someone who is now in spirit to find that someone they knew during the earth life knew more about spirit than someone who is now there. You're bound to ask how that could be so. So you can quite see the two of them having a pretty animated discussion. The simple answer, of course, is that knowledge of life in spirit is like any other body of knowledge. It's something that you build up over time through a combination of personal experience and learning from those who know more about it than you do yourself. The thing with learning about life in spirit is that through the use of mediumship, you can start learning about it while living the earth life. The vast majority of people, of course, don't trouble to do this, but if you do, you give yourself a head start when the trumpet sounds for you. And if you're someone who knows something of life in spirit, you are able to give others knowledge that will be useful to them at some point in time. The challenge, of course, is building up a sufficient picture of life in spirit so as to be able to navigate between the different things people tell you, telling truth from untruth. Anyway, to get back to Hugh Taggart, he says to James, "Old friend, I thank you again, and God bless you. I am now in a condition of light and suffer very little, and realize to a great extent that there is such a thing as the love of God, and that it may be mine. I pray, and my faith is becoming stronger all the time. The great proof to me, aside from what I see in the condition of other spirits who claim to have this love, is my own change in soul happiness, and in my desire to progress to the higher spheres, which your band tells me exists, and that I may find my home there, if I will only pray more to God, and let my faith enlarge. To me, this love and faith are a new revelation. Of course, when on earth I heard of God's love and of faith, but to me they meant nothing more than the rhapsodies of the enthusiastic religionists, whose emotions had overcome their normal reasoning powers, a will-o'-the-wisp, as it were. But now I know the reality of these things, and I find that the emotions are, in things pertaining to the soul, more certain leaders than are the reasoning faculties. I am quite happy at times, and I hope to make such progress in my soul development as to be happy all the time. You are my true friend, and I love you as a brother now." So here we see Hugh Taggart telling James about the experiences he has had in spirit, using what James told him, and what the results are in terms of Hugh's own spiritual development. Whenever he had the opportunity, the one thing James did was tell people about the importance of divine love and faith in God. As I've said before, faith isn't about mental belief in this or that doctrine. It is simply trust in God, in the reality of God, and in the reality of spirit as an expression of a loving God. In this message from Hugh, we see a man who now has a combination of knowledge and experience of applying it and seeing what the results are. So although Hugh is clearly grateful to James for what was shared between them, Hugh is now the one who has the benefit of direct personal experience of spirit. At this point, James asks after a couple of mutual friends, Harvey and Mackey. Hugh tells James, well, they are still in darkness, but have progressed some. The great disappointment that Harvey experienced when he came over seems to have had such a baleful influence on him that it is almost impossible for him at this time to reach out and try to grasp the truth of the existence of this love. But we are trying to help him, and he is commencing to wonder at our improved appearance, and to think that maybe we know what we tell him to be the cause of the change. This is, of course, George Harvey, whom we heard from back in video 2.3, and who was very disillusioned to find that the truths of his religious teachers weren't, in fact, anything of the sort. The other friend James asks after is Franklin Mackey. Hugh tells James that Mac is still in darkness, and it seems hard for him to awaken to the fact that there can be any other condition that he may have. He is very hard to reason with and does not seem to have much desire for his condition to change. This is very common with a lot of people who pass to spirit, unaware that personal development is always the name of the game, whether in this world or the next. Often the biggest obstacle for us is apathy. And if that is a habit we have fallen into in this world, we take it with us. Judging by the final part of the message, James seems to have asked Hugh if he has seen other people in spirit writing to him. Hugh replies, "I saw some spirits writing to you, but did not know them, except for Jesus. I know him and could never forget him, for there are none like him in grandeur and beauty and love." Well, I will not write more tonight. So, my dear friend, let me again express my gratitude and say with all my heart that I am grateful. Hugh T. Taggart. Interesting little final comment there, and possibly a useful confirmation for James, because although by this stage he has been doing automatic writing for about a year now, he understandably still has his doubts as to whether figures from long ago, such as Jesus, are truly writing to him. We also get a nice reminder that people in spirit communicate by thought, and that the thoughts we have attract others who share or recognize them. I say this because Mackey and Harvey obviously pick up on Taggart speaking about them, because they come forward when he is finished, each writing a short message to James. There might be no hell in spirit as traditionally conceived, but people's ears can still burn. Mackey begins by saying, "I am here, Franklin H. Mackey. I must write just a line to tell you that you are my friend and helper in my darkness and sufferings. I have been much benefited by your advice and the help which your band has given me, and I am commencing to see the light and to know what the love of God means to a poor benighted soul who has been in a state of torment. I will not write longer, but say that I am so grateful and will never forget your kindness and sympathy. May God bless you and keep you in his care. Your old friend and brotherly lawyer that was, Mackey." After Mackey, George Harvey comes forward to communicate with James. As I say, we have already heard from George back in video 2.3 when we looked at a message from him in which he expressed his disappointment, anger even, at having been misled by the priests of his religion as to what to expect upon passing to spirit. That was about 6 months before George now says, "I am here, George W. Harvey. I want to tell you that Mackey and Taggart have changed so much that I wonder why they have and I have not. They tell me that it is because they have received the love of God in their souls and faith in what the beautiful spirits of your band tell them. I hardly know what to think, and I want to ask you what you think is the cause. I am a doubting Thomas." In response, James presumably takes the opportunity to explain to George Mackey what he knows about divine love and the difference it makes to the soul who seeks it through prayer. Because Mackey replies, "Well, I have heard what you said, and I will try to do as you say." James appears to encourage George here, perhaps just to please do. To which George replies, "I will do so, and I want to express to you my gratitude for the interest you have taken in me. Your friend, George W. Harvey." It has to be said that this is not the most enthusiastic response, but at least George is listening and hopefully will make the attempt. I suppose the difficulty with the teaching of divine love is that if you don't have any experience of what it is like to share in that love, all you have to go on are other people's assertions as to the truth of it. At least that's true for people living the earth life. It's not true for people in spirit, because we see George Harvey saying clearly that he can see that Taggart and Mackey have changed. And not just slightly, because he describes them as having changed so much. The continuing difficulty for George Harvey, I suppose, is that even although he can see the change in Taggart and Mackey, he still has only their word for it as to what the cause of that change is. But at least he knows enough to try it for himself. I suppose it's a bit like trying to explain what it is like to fall in love to someone who has never had that experience. We can use all the words we can think of, and heaven knows history is full of writers and poets who have done just that. But however hard you try, you're not going to get across the truth of it in terms of what it actually feels like, and that experience of not being in charge of who you fall for. If you have that same conversation with someone who has experienced falling in love, they will immediately get what you mean, even though their particular circumstances and relationship will be different. The same difficulty attends attempts to convey the reality of divine love, save that we have an entirely free, conscious choice as to whether or not to initiate that process of sharing. In the messages we have looked at today, we've heard from two men who have chosen to initiate that process, and one who hasn't, or at least someone who hadn't back in 1915 when the message was written. Perhaps 100 years later, George Harvey is among those trying to share his experience of divine love with others. In the next video in this midweek series, video 2.9, I'll be taking you through another message from James Padgett's friend, Anthony Riddle. We've already heard from Anthony, also back in video 2.3, and the message in next week's video was given about 7 months after that previous one. I'll include a link to video 2.3 at the end of this video in case you want to look at it ahead of next week. The next video in the Divine Love series will be video 10.8 this coming Sunday, where we'll be looking at a message from the Apostle Paul, in which he corrects a few things in the New Testament record and says a bit about the illuminating vision he experienced on the road to Damascus. So I hope you'll join me for one or other of those. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, please do like it, as it does help to introduce the material to others. As ever, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care till then. Bye-bye.